Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm very happy to be here today. The title of my talk is a question. Will AI dominate the future wars? The answer to this question is not an easy one, because there are several issues involved in the use of AI in military. This talk is the outcome of the relevant publication in the last 5 years, and also from my discussions with colleagues from US, from Germany, and from Israel on the topic. And also, I took into my account the final report released by the US National Security Authority on artificial intelligence in 2021. This is the outline of my talk. My talk will be in the same direction as with that of the previous speaker. First, briefly, we will talk about what is AI and if this is a new concept, because there is a misconception here about if the AI is a new hot concept or is an old one. Which are the benefits of AI in the military? Which are the risks of using AI in the military? What significant military applications of AI are currently available? And I will close my talk with some comments about how can Air Force maximize the benefits of AI while mitigating the risks. I have some slides which are similar with those of the previous speaker, but I think it is good to see again what is artificial intelligence. There are several definitions about AI, but I found this one the most useful. Artificial intelligence is a simulation of human intelligence processes by machines, especially computer systems. Specific applications include expert systems, natural language processing. This is the category where ChatGPT belongs to, speech recognition, and machine vision. About the taxonomy of AI, we saw before a similar graph. Early approaches to AI involved automation systems with the ability to perform scripted tasks according to sets or specified rules. Okay, automation is used to some extent more than 20 years. We can say 30 years. But today, we have more sophisticated systems based on machine learning. These systems can progressively improve their performance by recognizing patterns in large volumes of data. So they need a huge number of data to work. And taking corrective actions to improve their abilities to classify future patterns without being explicitly programmed to do so. And even earlier and more sophisticated class of machine learning systems is the deep learning. The previous speaker also talked about that, where we have multi-layered artificial neural networks to recognize patterns in data representation, for example, as labeled images, as opposed to using task-specific algorithms as it is done in the more basic machine learning systems. So, deep learning is the most, we can say that deep learning is the most earlier advance in artificial intelligence, but still, this is not a new concept. I mean new in the last, let's say, 5 years. Okay, is AI a new concept? The answer is clear. AI is not a new concept. There are several approaches to artificial intelligence from during and after the Second World War. We can see here 2 scientists, 2 engineers. Alan Turing is well known. Claude Shannon, I'm not sure if he is well known. Of course, he is well known to engineers, and especially to electronics engineer, but is not well known. So Alan Turing introduced in 1948 many of the central concepts of AI in a report which is called Intelligent Machinery. Unfortunately, he didn't publish this report. Later, some years later, Claude Shannon invented the bit. So Claude Shannon, in my opinion, is one of the most significant scientists of the previous century. Claude Shannon is the father of information theory, and he is the engineer who invented the bit. It took several years, decades, we can say decades, to make significant progress towards the development of practical AI systems and make this technology reality. And the question is, why this happened? The answer to this question is the advances in hardware. We can have today AI applications because we have an explosion in hardware, a revolution in the hardware in the last 20 years. When I talk about hardware, we mean microprocessors and memories. So the hardware is the big changer in the digital era that we have today. It is, I think it is useful to see this video. It's a few seconds. Claude Shannon in this video presented the first machine learning systems in early 50s. Its name is Theseus. But I don't know how to play.
Theseus is an electrically controlled mouse. He has the ability to solve a certain class of problems by trial and error means and then remember the solution. In other words, he can learn from experience. Like his classical namesake, Theseus has a problem with finding his way through a maze. His objective is the goal here in the corner. He is now exploring the maze using a rather involved strategy of trial and error. As he finds the correct path, he registers the information in his memory. Later, I can put him down in any part of the maze that he's already explored, and he'll be able to go directly to the goal without making a single false turn.
Okay. So the conclusion here is that AI is not a new concept. And AI is a hot topic, and because we have applications today, and these applications is due to the big advances in hardware, in microprocessors, in system on chips, in memories. Now, let's go to see how AI is used in military. According to the report I mentioned before, the best human operator cannot defend against multiple machines making thousands of maneuvers per second, potentially moving at hypersonic speeds and orchestrated by AI across domains. Humans cannot be everywhere at once, but software can. So this is a very compact answer to the question how AI is used in the military. Compared to conventional systems, and conventional system is the use of AI as in automation, AI-powered military systems can better manage efficient, enormous volume of data. Actually, as I said before, and the previous speaker said, we need a huge number of data in order to use machine learning algorithms, machine learning or deep learning algorithms. So, because AI is so good at making decisions, it dramatically enhances the self-regulation, self-control, and self-actuation of combat systems. This is a list of the basic benefits of AI in the military. I had ready to comment on the three with yellow here, but the previous speaker talked with details about the second one, so I will comment on the first and on the third. So the strategic decision-making and target recognition. AI's algorithms are able to collect and process data from numerous different sources to aid in decision-making, especially in high-stress situations. In many cases, AI systems can quickly and efficiently analyze a situation and make the best decision. However, decision-making under pressure and stress is critical, and AI and humans can work together to make this process easier. The combination of humans' ethical understanding and AI's quick analytical abilities can speed up the decision-making process. Regarding the target recognition, AI can aid in making target recognition more accurate in combat environments. AI can improve the ability for systems to identify the position of their targets. AI systems can have the ability to predict enemy behavior, anticipate vulnerabilities, weather and environmental conditions, assess mission strategies, and suggest alleviation plans. This can save time and human resources, putting soldiers a step ahead of their targets. Now, the question is, are there disadvantages of using AI in the military? The answer is yes. We can see here in this list three disadvantages, we can say risks of using AI in the military. The first is the accident risk. In theory, automation has the potential to improve warfare precision and command and control over military forces, reducing civilian casualties and the risk of unintended escalation. For example, commercial airline autopilots have improved safety, and self-driving cars will follow suit in the time. However, the difficulty in developing safe and reliable self-driving cars in all weather and driving conditions highlights AI's current limitations. Driving or commercial flying, however, is far less complex than war. Another issue is that militaries face a lack of data on the battlefield environment. We have a lack of data. They won't be able to test their actual performance in real-world scenario until wartime. This is very critical. And this creates a problem when it comes to testing autonomous systems. In peacetime, militaries can try to replicate real operational conditions as closely as possible, but they will never be able to fully recreate the chaos and violence that we have in a war. Autonomy and pre-delegated authority. Even if AI systems perform without errors, nations may face difficulties predicting what actions they might want to take in a crisis. Humans delegate authority for certain actions to machines when deploying autonomous systems. And this is the heart of the AI concept. The problem here is that leaders might take a different approach in a real crisis. And we have here a contradiction between the approach of the leaders and the approach taken by the AI systems. Prediction and overtrust in automation. Keeping humans informed and limiting AI systems to only giving advice is not a cure-all for these dangers. Automation bias in the tendency for humans to place too much faith in machines. So the conclusion here is that we have disadvantages, risks of using AI in the militaries. In the next 3 slides, I will give you an overview of the current situation regarding the AI research and development in 3 countries, in US, in China, and in Russia. In US, there are four big projects that they run today. The first one, it is called MAVEN. And it decodes vast amounts of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance data using AI. The second one is a very important project for the US Pentagon. The name is DAPRA, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. DAPRA Squad X experimentation program aims to design, develop, and validate emerging systems and technologies. As a result, it functions with sensor instruments, autonomous prototypes, etc. Additionally, Squad X emphasizes accuracy and non-kinetic environment. As a result, it supports projects involving squad autonomy and squad sensing. The third project is called Atlas, Advanced Targeting and Lethality Automated System. The Army's ambition to create autonomous vehicles for contemporary warfare is reflected in this project. The last but not least one, is called VISTA, Variable in Flight Simulation Test Aircraft. This is a project which intend to use autonomous aircrafts. Here we can see a block, a modified F-16D, Block 30, Peace Marble 2. I'm reading now because I'm not familiar with these terms. Aircraft upgraded with Block 40 avionics. This is a one-of-kind training aircraft which was flown, it was developed by Lockheed Martin, and was flown by an AI agent for more than 17 hours recently, just before 1.5 months. So, and this represents the first time AI engaged on a tactical aircraft. So VISTA, the project, VISTA, is expected to change the face of air power in the US. Let's see now what happens in China. China seems to have focused more on developing airborne robotic systems than on terrestrial or maritime systems. Okay, this is critical. They focused more on airborne robotic systems than on terrestrial or maritime. Its efforts have concentrated mainly on using autonomy to improve the effectiveness of existing platforms and tactics. However, it is also developing more innovative systems in efforts to create novel capabilities, especially the ability to conduct penetrating strikes. China has worked to enable its drone to operate with greater autonomy, with capabilities for taking off, landing, planning flights, etc. The Chinese army has also commissioned many projects to improve drone hardware, including batteries, generators, data links, and engines. More interestingly, from an ethical perspective, China is developing stealthy penetrating drones, similar to the United States 647B or the UK Taranis. UK Taranis is the drone, the penetrating drone. And last, the Chinese Navy has also demonstrated interest in maritime robotics, mostly to enhance the effectiveness of the existing ones. The conclusion here is the Chinese army is aggressively developing robotics and software AI applications. There are no known Chinese weapon systems currently fielded or under development that are fully autonomous. But some of them are already highly autonomous and could likely operate without a human in the loop if their software were modified. Let's see very briefly what happens in Russia. Russia is devoting, we can see in the first bullet something that Putin said 6 years ago, and this is a famous phrase. So Russia is devoting considerable energy to leveling the playing field with the US in military. Regarding the UAVs, Russia is dedicating significant resources to developing unmanned systems, as evidenced by the host of new UAVs, UGVs, unmanned ground vehicles, and unmanned undersea vehicles in various phases of R&D and testing. Also, Russia focused on the swarm technology, the drone swarm technology. Professor talked before about that. And, we consider that is also a long way off compared on this topic compared with the US and China. This is the last slide of my talk. I try to make a conclusion, some comments, and to answer to the question, how can Air Force maximize the benefits of AI while mitigating the risks that I mentioned before. So the Air Force should continue in development of military AI in all areas that support more effective mission accomplishment. Most of these developments will probably focus on non-lethal application, such as in airborne intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance processing, but advanced systems will be needed as well. And my last comment is that some systems will also need to be capable of operating with supervised autonomy or with full autonomy as the tactical situation requires. Thank you very much. This is the monument of Pythagoras in my home village in Samos. Thank you very much.